Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to all of you once again with Sayyid Kashif Mahmood. In this lecture, I am going to discuss about the flagella. We will know what is the flagella. In this lecture, after discussing about the flagella, we will discuss about the types of bacteria. What does it mean? It means that whether a bacteria having flagella or don't having flagella. And then if a bacteria having flagella, then how many flagella are there in a bacteria? On the basis of the number of flagella, we will discuss the further classification of flagellated bacteria. After this classification get over, we will discuss the structure of flagella, and at the last, the most important is we will discuss the functions of flagella in a bacteria. So now let's start. But wait, let me tell you something. Flagella are very thin. We cannot see it with light microscope. Why? Because it is very small. We see or we observe it with the electronic microscope. But there is another possibility that we can see flagella with the light microscope with one condition, and that is if we stain the flagella. When we stain the flagella, so the flagella become thick, then we can see it. Now let's discuss the flagella. So flagella, I have defined it like they are thread-like locomotor appendages outward from the plasma membrane and cell wall. What does it mean? I have written that they are just like thread. They are very small. They are just like hair. Second word which I have written, that they are locomotor. What does it mean? They have the ability to do locomotion. When bacteria is moving from one place to another place, how it move? It move with the help of flagella, which I will discuss at the last portion of this video. After that, I have written our appendages. What does this word mean? This word means there's something going outside from the inner side of a body to the environment. And the appendages has been defined like that the flagella are outward from the plasma membrane and cell wall. So if this is bacteria, so this is the inner side, so the flagella will going outside of this. That's why I have called it appendages. Now let's discuss about the types of bacteria. As I have already said that this division is on the basis of whether the flagella is present or absent in a bacteria. So let's discuss this. The first one is aflagellated and the second one is flagellated. What does this mean? Aflagellated, having no flagella. If bacteria don't have any flagella, we call that as aflagellated. Or we can also call it another name, that is Amphitricus. So Amphitricus or aflagellated are those bacteria which have no flagella. They don't need flagella. What is the example of this? The example will be Pasturella. After discussing aflagellated bacteria, let's proceed to the second type of bacteria on the basis of flagella, that is flagellated bacteria. So what are flagellated bacteria? They are having flagella. So those bacteria which have flagella will be termed as flagellated bacteria. So we have discussed the major division that if the bacteria don't have flagella, we call that aflagellated or atricus bacteria. If the bacteria having flagella, then we call that bacteria as flagellated bacteria. Now, as I have already said, that if the bacteria having flagella, then the question come to the mind, how many flagella will be there in a bacteria? So on the basis of this number, we will have further classification, and which we have already written on this board. So on the basis of this, we are having two basic types of bacteria. One is known as Monotricus and the second one is known as Polytricus. What does it mean? Mono word is from Greek, which means one. Tricus mean hair, which I have written here. Tricus mean hair. Actually the flagella look like thread or hair, that's why we call it hair. So if a bacteria having only one flagella, we will call that bacteria as Monotricus bacteria. What will be the example? The example will be Pseudomonas, having only one flagella. After discussing about the Monotricus, now let's discuss the Polytricus. What does this word poly mean? Poly mean many. Let's define this. Having more than one flagella. If bacteria having more than one flagella, we will call that Polytricus bacteria. It is the opposite of Monotricus. Now, as we have said that it have more than one flagella, so then on the basis of many flagella, they have further types. Number one is Amphitricus. Number two is Luputricus. Number three is Peritricus. We have further these three types on the basis of arrangement of flagella. The first one is Amphitricus. So let's define this. Having flagella at both sides. Those bacteria having flagella with both ends. Like this, one flagella is here, one is here. Having more than one flagella, that's why Polytricus. Having two flagella from both sides, that's why it is Amphitricus. And I have written amphi word, it is from Greek, which mean both. So both mean both sides, having flagella from both sides. What will be the example of this? The example of this is Nitrosomonas. So after discussing Amphitricus, now let's proceed to Luputricus. What does Lupu mean? Lupu is also a Greek word. Greek language is very sweet language. Greek language is the language of knowledge. So Lupu mean crust or tuft. So we can define Luputricus as having many flagella from one side. It don't mix it with the Monotricus. Monotricus having flagella from one side, but the flagella is only one, while the Luputricus having flagella from one side, but the flagella is not only one, there are many. So Luputricus bacteria are those bacteria which have flagella from one side, but the flagella will be more than one. What will be the example of this? So the example is Spirillum. I hope it is clear to you. Now let's proceed to the Peritricus. What does peri mean? So I have written this. Peri mean around. It is also a Greek word. So now let's define it. Having flagella from all around its body. Those bacteria which have flagella from all around of its body. Let's suppose this. So it having no two ends. It having flagella from all around, as you see it. What will be the example of this? So the example is E. coli. So I hope it will be clear to all of you that what does flagella mean. It will be also clear to all of you that what are the types of bacteria on the basis of presence or absence of flagella, and the further classification on the basis of numbers will also be clear to all of you. If you have any question, you can ask in the section below in the comment section. After having discussion on the flagella and the types of bacteria, now let's proceed to the third one topic, that is the structure of flagella. So if we observe a flagella, we can see three parts. One is filament, second is hook, and the third one is basal body. So let's discuss these three parts one by one in little bit detail. What is a filament? So we can say that it is the longest, thin and most obvious portion. What does it mean? It is longest. It is longest, but as compared to hook and basal body. It is thin, not thick, as compared to hook and basal body. And the third point which I have written is most obvious portion. Actually it is outside of the bacteria. So when we see flagella, we actually see filament. Now what is the function of filament? So the function of filament is it help in locomotion. When bacteria are going from one side to the other side, actually the flagella is helping. So this portion which is filament, actually this portion helping in the motion or in the locomotion of the bacteria. Now let's show it here. This portion which is here, this is filament. This portion, this one is filament. So it is the most obvious portion. It going outside, so it is the most obvious, and it is the most longest because it starts from here and going to the basal body. So it is very longest, and if you compare this with this structure, so it is thin as compared to this structure. So this is filament. So when it moves, so because of its movement, the bacteria is having locomotion. It acts as like the tail, act in a fish. When the fish moving its tail, so he have locomotion. So when the bacteria moving this filament, so bacteria having locomotion. After discussing the filaments, now let's discuss about the hook. So it is wider than that of filament. Filament is this structure and hook is this structure. Let me show it. This one is hook. So we see that it is wider or thicker than that of filament. Now let's show the function of this hook. So it protecting the filament. Actually the filament is inside the hook, so it protecting the filament. And what is the second function? The second function is that it linking the filament to the basal body. This is basal body and this is filament which coming inside the hook. So this hook actually helping connecting the filament with the basal body. After having discussion on the filament and hook, now let's come to the third portion or third part of the flagella, that is basal body. So what are basal body? We can say they are embedded in the cell envelope. They are embedded, they are there in the cell envelope and are very complex. Their structure are very complex. Now we will show it. You will see really it is very complex structure. What is the function of this basal body? So it's supporting the flagella. So it's supporting this structure. So it cannot move every time because it has been supported by basal body. Now if you analyze here, from here to here, this is called basal body. So if we try it from here to here, you can say from here to here, this is basal body. If you analyze this structure which is here, this one is rod, this structure is rod, and the structure which is here, this is ring, this is ring, and this structure is rod. Now let's having discussion on the ring. Let's suppose if we take the example of gram-negative bacteria. So gram-negative bacteria having 4 rings, otherwise gram-positive bacteria having 2 rings. Why it is so? Because the gram-negative bacteria having an outer layer and the gram-positive bacteria don't have an outer layer or outer membrane. So because of that outer membrane, the gram-negative bacteria having 4 rings. So this ring which is here, this is called L ring. This ring which is here, this is called P ring. And these are M S ring. And this last one is C ring. So these 4 rings are there in gram-negative bacteria. So this L ring is exist or embedded in the outer membrane of gram-negative bacteria. This ring which I have named as P ring here, this is P ring, it is embedded in the peptidoglycan layer, or we can say it is in cell wall. This MS ring is there in plasma membrane, and the last one which I have shown here, C ring, it is toward the cytoplasm. So these 4 rings exist there in the cell of gram-negative bacteria. So basal body having 2 basic parts. One is ring and the other one is rod. If we are talking about the gram-positive bacteria, so gram-positive bacteria only have 2 rings. On the other hand, if we are talking about the gram-negative bacteria, so gram-negative bacteria having outer membrane. So on the basis of that, gram-negative bacteria having basically 4 rings. After discussing the parts of flagella or structure of flagella, now let's proceed to the last topic, that is functions of flagella. I will write it, functions of flagella. So the first function is that it helps in locomotion. When bacteria moving from one place to another place, so bacteria move with the help of flagella. And I have already said here that because of the movement of filament, the bacteria having locomotion. So this flagella helping in locomotion. The second function is that it can help in attachment. The flagella can also help in attachment. The third one function is that in some bacteria they are virulence factor. It means they're contributing a bacteria to cause disease. So I hope the flagella, the types of bacteria on the basis of flagella, and the structure of flagella, and at the last the function of flagella will be clear to all of you. So thanks a lot for watching the video. In next videos we will going to other structures which are there in the bacteria.